All right, thank you. I think we're all on. It is time to start. Just about a minute till we're going to start. Will the representative for the entity requesting the liquor license, are you here? Are you here? I'm looking for, you wave your hand if you're here. Not here yet. All right. Mr. Carabello. Anthony Carabello, are you here? You're not here yet? Yankee, do you see an Anthony Carabello here? No. Yes. Yeah, I'm having an issue here getting this to. Great. I think I got it. Is the Anthony Carabello, are you here? Good evening. I want to open tonight's meeting. We are, the first order of business is we have a application for a beer and cider liquor license. Let me pull up the application. Actually, you know what I'll do? I will send the application to everybody. So you all have it. 888 Nostrin LLC. Here's the PDF of the application. You should all have it. And we are supposed to start with the representative from that entity. Mia, can you try to reach them and see where they are and tell them the first person on the agenda? Or we're just trying to reach the attorney for, it's early. We just started, and I'm going to ask the chair of the board to share some words as we wait for the entity. So maybe he'll share some greetings and some opening remarks. Fred, let me just, are you unmuted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Actually, I don't have much in terms of comments for this evening. My typical belief is that we've picked very capable chairs and very capable members of the community to serve on the committee as well. So I guess the only thing I would like to do is thank you, as we're at the last public safety meeting for the regular scheduled year. I want to thank everyone for the service, for everything that you've done, for your careful consideration, for the time and effort that you put into this. I I definitely understand this is not an easy job, and this intrudes into your personal lives. But I thank you for the commitment that you've made over the past year in terms of making sure our public safety committee runs. Otherwise, that's really all I have, and I'm just looking forward to a very productive meeting as per your usual. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Fred. So, as we wait, unless, Anthony, are you here? I would recommend that we take a quick, as we wait for him, we could take a quick view as his at the application. I know there was a lot of conversation and discussion about this application, and I noted one discrepancy in the application, that if you look at page 11, where you have petitions, the signatures, where the hours there are 9 to 2 and 9 to 1. If you look at the actual application, which I believe is page 8, the hours are 9 to 1 and 9 to 12, 9 to 1, 9 to 4. So they don't match up. There's some additional hours they're requesting in the application, which they do not have signatures of support for. So that's one discrepancy I noted in the application. All right, I think. Mia, I'm gonna unmute you for a second. You could tell me if you reached out to, I have a Mac. It's a little bit hard to scroll down over here. Yankee, can you unmute Mia? Here, right here. Mia, Mia, what's going on with the attorney for the entity?
I've called and there was no answer, but Khalid has made contact with him as of this afternoon, advising him of his required attendance and the required information for him to present this evening to the committee and all interested parties.
So let's see if we could get Vinny on the phone, see if Vinny could come on now instead. So we could start with Vinny. I see we have a very large group of participants. There's 27 participants right now, and there's also several dozen watching on YouTube. Let's see if the police department is on, because can you come on? Are you on? You're gonna come because we're ready for you because the other person didn't show up. So you come on now. We could start. Thank you. Bye. All right, we're gonna start with the police department because the library bar is not on yet. So we're gonna go to Vinny. Armin Edros. So hold on one second. All right. I'm sorry. It's not a. Armin.
Hello.
Can we hear Armin Edmund? Can we hear? Yes, you're on. Go ahead.
Yes, if you can hear me. Although I believe my partner Joanne is going to be speaking for us this evening. I think her user is M905.
M905. Well,
I believe she just messaged the.
right, you're unmuted. And you are unmuted.
Yes, I'm here. I'm Joanne. Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Thank God. So at the last board meeting, there were some questions about outreach and hours of operation. As I noted in your application, we noted that the signatures of support, that document does not have the 4 a.m. closing time that you requested from the board. The second thing that I know there was a question about was whether or not proper notice was given to the community. And I understand that you have since changed the location of your sign from where it was before. Is that correct?
The sign has always been there. And I actually took a picture the first time with the newspaper, and the sign was never taken down. And we did give people, we did give people notice in the area, including the store that's there now.
So I just messaged everybody the sign. It's a 99-cent store, so there were some questions about whether people would look for a liquor license, a sign in a 99-cent store. And I know when you originally came before the board with your application, the current tenant was not aware that you had made the application, even though the sign was hanging in his store. So
that's not true. We actually told him first, and how would we
all due
hang a
respect, that
sign
is
without
true, because
letting
I
him
chaired that meeting and we asked point blank, was the tenant aware yet? And the tenant was not aware, but I know since then he has been told. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about outreach a little bit and hours of operation, and then we'll take questions from the committee and we will vote.
Okay, no problem.
All right, go ahead.
Well, what we're trying to do is actually do a hybrid bookstore bar for the neighborhood, where people can come and bring book people to bar and bar people to books. And what we were trying to do, what we wanted to do originally, we were going to see the most time that they would give us. And if there was any pushback, we would be open from 9 to 2. And on the weekends, from 9 to 2 on the weekends. And during the week, we would close the backyard at least an hour earlier, to almost 2 hours earlier, so we can actually make sure that we don't disturb our neighbors. I actually was the person and my partner who went outside and canvassed the neighborhood and asked the people about a bookstore bar in the neighborhood. And we have got very good response from people adjacent the store, all around the neighborhood. We did tell the owner, and he actually hung the sign, the owner of the 99-cent store. We purchased the building, rehabbed the building, made a commitment to our community to be able to do something in the neighborhood, that we want something a little bit different, that we're going to have something in the neighborhood that's going to be available to all of us in the neighborhood. We have 99-cent stores. He's been a great guy. He is a great guy. I'm not saying that he's not, but we've made a conscious decision to purchase a place that we can have and generate a certain income for that community with giving literature as well. So I was under the impression that a lot of the members before didn't have our application. Like, they were asking that we didn't have our signatures, and we did have our signatures. The first time that we went there, it was a miscommunication of what was happening, but we had our signatures, we had our plans, and I don't understand why everyone didn't have it. And I was trying to communicate with that the last time, and I was actually sending text messages, but they weren't being received because
We have now your application. I put it in the chat as a PDF. It's SLA application. Everybody has access to it. But again, I noted in your application, on your signature support, you have nowhere to say a 4 a.m. closing time.
No, we actually changed it to a 2 a.m. closing time.
So your request now is for a 2 a.m. Your application now is changed to 2 a.m., not 4 a.m.
Yes,
Right.
Yes, correct.
This has been clarified now for the first time. Are there any members of the committee who would like to ask questions to this establishment? Please, Yank, if you can unmute anybody from the committee that wants to ask questions. I see that Shlomo Hecht is here. Shlomo, do you have any questions? Shlomo? What's happening with his mute and unmutes?
No, I don't have any questions right now, but if I do have, I'll definitely pipe up.
Yankee, any questions? Anybody else from the committee here? Is Rashida here? Yankee, do you see Rashida here? Any questions? Anybody from the community or from the board have any questions? Please wave your hand. Mia, I made you a host, so you could also unmute people. Anybody from the community have questions? All right. I don't know why it's not letting. You, Yankee, it won't let me unmute. You want to see? Can you unmute Ms. Barnes?
Hello?
Yes, what's your question?
Well, first, my question is, I'm not able to enjoy or engage in the chat when I click on everyone, it does not register. And the question on 882 Nostrand Avenue, is that the same block as Community Board number 9?
It is,
Yeah.
it's, yes.
Yes, it is. And prior, when you talked about it, it was to be open to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Now it has changed. Weekends to 2 a.m. and weekdays to 12 a.m. from 9. And what is the focus? Is it books or alcohol?
It's actually it's a hybrid business. If we look at what we're selling books and alcohol, but a lot of books to sell right now in the retail value, it's a very small margin. We would actually like to have books as well as alcohol, but it was determined by the amount of alcohol that we sell that can support a business that can be viable in the neighborhood for a longer period of time. And we don't have I didn't think that there was an issue for us to tell the board how many books we were going to sell. I would like to sell a whole lot of books, but it all matters how the community receives us and buys books. We also have to make a living at that.
Okay.
I thank you. Lorna. Any other questions from the board or from the community? All right. Primo, you have a question as well, right? You're unmuted.
Yes, and then I see Ms. Boyd has a question as well.
All right.
I'm first of all new to the community board,
Thank
so
you. Welcome.
to be here. Thank you for welcoming me. My question is around the use of the rear yard, and it's a question less for the applicants, but more for those familiar with kind of the local codes. It sounds like they're asking to be open until midnight in their backyard, and are there any kind of guidelines and guidances around how late businesses can be open in a open space?
Good question. I'm going to first let the establishment respond.
Well, basically, we're not going to be holding music or anything out there. We'd probably be holding authors from the neighborhood to be able to display their books, talk about their books. We're trying to keep it. It's not a party place in that aspect that we don't want to disturb any of the neighbors that are behind us. It's basically to have outdoor space to enjoy that. So if 12 o'clock, we understood that 4 o'clock in the morning was very late. So we will always we'll close the backyard space earlier than everything else, and always try to keep things at a minimum because there are surrounding people that live in the neighborhood.
So the question was, are you required to shut your music at a specific time?
We're not going to have music down there.
The question was, what was the requirement under the law?
I don't.
Is it 10 o'clock, I believe, Fred? Is it 10? I think so. I think it's all right.
We're not having it.
I'm unsure. Right, I'm unsure. But to the applicant's point, they're not going to have music. And typically, the other way that's handled as well is it becomes a noise complaint. So I mean, I think there's always that if noise becomes too much at the establishment, typically the 71st is good about coming over and say, turn it down, please.
Okay, but we will not be having music in our backyard. It's basically what we planning to do back there is serve people a nice beverage and probably authors from the neighborhood to come into the neighborhood to showcase their books to our clientele. And sometimes where people, it's hard to get published outside, you have a space where you can come in and show the public your book without having to have major press or something like that. You can show it to the neighborhood.
Any other questions from the community or from the board?
Ms. Boyd.
Ms. Boyd, I will call on you, but this question should be about this establishment and nothing else, please. That's what we're discussing. You're unmuted.
I mean, okay. I would like to ask a question before you make the assumption about what question I'm going to ask. Jacko, thank you very much. So I'm asking, there seems to be a little confusion about the backyard time. What time exactly during the week are you going to close down the backyard? And what time during the weekend are you going to close the backyard? Because there seems to be a little unclarity about that.
So what we would do with the weekend, we would ask for 1 a.m. and during the week at 12 o'clock midnight.
So you want to have noise in your backyard till 12 o'clock at night. You want your patrons to go into the backyard with their alcohol, be in the backyard to 12 o'clock at night in a residential neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, yes, I definitely, I thought that 12 o'clock would be a time to bring it in, and we're not trying to make noise. It's basically, we would hold outside events, especially in these times. We need an outdoor space because we don't know what's happening with the COVID stuff, to be able to have a certain distance. And it doesn't always have to be open. If that becomes a problem, we're not having music. It's not something that's going to be a dance party in the backyard. It's basically literature and a drink. And
so then the question then is being asked, what are the regulations around having people in backyards in residential blocks after 10 o'clock? Because there is to be.
I didn't know there was a regulation. Since we're not playing music, we're not making some kind of a large discomfort for anyone else. I live in this neighborhood. I own another business in the neighborhood, and I don't want to be in a part of an establishment that's going to disturb anyone in their sleep. I would not try to do that. So my issue is we will be monitoring this bar at all times. There will always be someone there. And if someone is making too much noise or stupid else, we will bring them out of the backyard and we would close our backyard. This is a place that we would like to do some reading, and enjoy a drink if you wanted to. And it doesn't always have to be outside, but in these times right now, how businesses are going, I think we're going to need a backyard space. And if 12 o'clock is too late, since we're not, my plan is not to make a party back there. What we can do if there's noise complaint, I think we would address that. That's not our plan to basically make a big party in the backyard to the neighbors behind us or on the side of us.
Can you clarify what the neighborhood looks like? There are no tenants in your building, correct?
Yeah, there are tenants in our building.
There are tenants.
Yes, there are tenants in our building, and we have all of their signatures as well.
You have the Community Board 9 building next door, which has 10.
No, there's a liquor store next door.
That's
Mr. Lee. It's right there. And after on the other side is a Chinese restaurant. And that's also Miss Lee. They're not related. And they have 2 apartments on one side and 2 apartments on another side and 2 apartments above 882 as well. Those are the businesses. And there's a laundromat on the other side of the liquor store. And we're not trying to have a lot of people in the backyard. You can it's basically for a small reading. We're not trying to pack the backyard with people. And it's a capacity issue as well. We don't want to do that. So no one.
You have the support of the residents living immediately around that backyard where you plan to open this.
Yes, the liquor store opens until almost 12 o'clock every night.
The liquor store has no outdoor area.
No, they actually, no, they have no outdoor. They have an extension on their backyard with so I informed Mr. Lee on one side, Mr. Lee on the other side. They're both tenants on those buildings. I've informed everyone what we were planning to do. We had no one objected. I let them know that we are doing a backyard. It's not parties. We're not planning to hold a ton of people in the backyard space. And I told them what we were doing, and we're not having any music.
So is there any, there is some concern about the 12 o'clock at night in the backyard. If you're making the assumption that people are reading back there and not necessarily drinking, I'm just a little confused about that. But obviously 12 o'clock at night is still a little late for a residential community on a weekday.
Okay, so we can look at.
Are you willing to reduce that time?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think if you're reading that you can't have libations while you read. I do it all the time, but yes, I will be willing to reduce that I don't want to cause my neighbors any kind of discomfort in any way. I want to give them a different experience in the neighborhood that we don't have right now. But yes, I definitely would think that that's a good idea. If it's actually having a problem on our neighbors, I definitely want to make sure that my neighbors are happy and our community board is happy and we're happy.
Warren, you're unmuted.
Hi, it's Warren from the Community Board. I just want to give you a view of historic, what the board has done. Probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and that may not be accurate. The board approved a bakery and bar on Franklin Street called Scotch and Pie or Scotch and Cake. I don't really remember. And they've had their liquor license reviewed as well as renewed a number of times since then, as well as they've become a very successful establishment, employing a lot of people, as well as getting notoriety throughout our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see that, hold on, Fred, you have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
All right, thank you. I think that's it's definitely a question that's on the mind of a number of people here. When Vinny gets on, we might be able to ask him if there's a particular statute with regards to when the noise has to end. But the other thing I'm interested in, and I think perhaps you and the committee might be able to say to answer this better, with regards to backyard applications, is this typical of an application that we've seen where people want to have things in the backyard, or does this seem somewhat longer than most people have requested in the past? I just want to see if this is something consistent with what we've done in the past.
Well, I'm chair for a year, and I don't recall a backyard application. We've had many applications for entities, and I don't recall a backyard application with residents on either side.
Well, the business plan, and I definitely understand, just because someone else hasn't thought of the idea, that I don't think that's something to knock down because you haven't thought the idea, especially in these climates, in these times where businesses right now need a certain amount of space, and we'll have free air back there where you're not on top of one another in that aspect. So I just thought, since it's a part of the business, that it goes from the business to that's the only way that you can access the backyard is through the business. It would be nice to have an outdoor space.
Vinny, you're a caller, I think user 1, is that you? Speak for a second. We hear you? Vinny, are you on?
Yeah, because I'm on.
You want to, can you give us some input over here about, there's a establishment before the committee that has a request. They would like to keep a outdoor area behind their bar and library open for reading until 12 a.m. and on some evenings 2 a.m. They said there won't be music. There will be people just reading there. Are there any rules and regulations that you're aware of that address that?
No, there are none. As far as noise, it generally goes by the complaints we receive via 311 in the neighborhood. So if they're operating and there's no complaints, we will not be visiting the place. As soon as the 311 switchboard lights up, or we start getting complaints either from CB9 or from phone calls, then we're going to pay a visit to the location. There is no time frame on noise from a commercial location. As long as they're good neighbors, that's how usually we do enforcement.
Thank you, Vinny. So, I know there's one more question. It's the last question to take from Beverly. Beverly, I'm going to unmute you. Yep, you're unmuted, and then we're going to go to votes.
Good afternoon. The difference between the butterscotch, which serves pie, and liquor, they serve it in the same place. And if I'm understanding the configuration of the vendor in front of us tonight, there's going to be books in one area and liquor in another. So if I'm understanding that correctly, that's what's leading me back to ask the percentage. Since bringing an experience to the community that you say it's never had before, the community has multiple bars, and you're right, bookstores would be new.
Well, we don't plan to have one area that's a bookstore and one area that's a bar. It's basically one business that's a hybrid between two places. And we're going to be selling the books. The reason why we want an outdoor space, we want to be able to have some authors come and showcase their work where they probably wouldn't be heard in the neighborhood with around your peers. So it's not that we're going to have I can't tell you that we're going to have a business that does supply books. I would like it to be 100% books and alcohol at the same time. But what sells more, we need one entity to be able to carry the cost. If you did the cost analysis on selling books and the markup on that, it's low. So that's why we're adding the alcohol part to it, to basically still have books and have literature at the same place.
And I see somebody from the executive committee has a question. It's going to be the last question before we move for a vote. Francesca, you're unmuted.
Thank you. At any given time, I know we are talking about social distancing, and I think I saw in the chat there's an occupancy of 74. So how many people are you looking to have in the backyard at any given time, since we are still in the era of social distancing?
Well, you can't have you would have to have less than 50% if it was in these times right now. But if you you would have to have a backyard space if that space was available right now. So we will follow all of the guidelines that needed to be followed when this comes up. We will not be putting anyone's life in danger, ourselves, our staff, and our patrons. We don't want, that's not something that we would do. So we would follow the guidelines as the city would allow us.
Thank you. I'm going to make a recommendation that the committee provides a letter of support, but till 11 o'clock, not till 12 o'clock. I think 12 o'clock's a little late. Yankee, do we have a motion?
Yes.
You make a motion to support a letter of support until what time?
11.
All right. We have one more committee member here, is Shlomo Hecht. Shlomo, you unmute yourself.
Yes.
Second, do you second?
I second the motion.
All right, and I also support the motion. Rashida, I did not see you here, so I also vote to support. Rashida is a committee member. Let me unmute. Rashida, what's your vote?
No.
All right, so it's 3 yes, 1 no. So we vote to support, we vote to provide a letter of support for this establishment, but until 11 o'clock, not till 12 o'clock for the outdoor area. Thank you very much. Vinny, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Great, Vinny, it's all yours. Listen, I just want to give everybody I'd like you to start with the I'm going to share in the chat. I provided you a PDF earlier with some of the statistics in the neighborhood. I'd like you to address those statistics and explain whether or not there is here.
Where there's what? I'm sorry to hear you.
Whether the social distancing law is being applied equally.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the 7-1 continued through the pandemic. We basically had the same approach across the whole community. There was 0 social distancing summonses written at any event. The problem we're having with the differentiating is when people call on 311 for quiet life infractions, drinking, smoking, large parties, they will be labeling them as social distancing calls. When the officers got there was a lot more going on besides not social distancing. Obviously, when we first got there, people were warned to disperse. If they failed to disperse, then quality of life summonses were written. Drinking, marijuana, bottle, all quality of life summonses. No summons at all that went into social distancing. The only time a singular social distancing summons was written was at Ebbets Field when we actually arrested a person. We had a shots fired job. We had a sort of group up there, and the person was arrested for other criminality, and just social distancing was thrown in there. But there were other charges along with that. That was a minor charge. So through the whole coronavirus, that was the only social distancing summons we actually wrote anywhere.
So
we continue.
Vinny, there's 13 summonses in this report. Those are not for social distancing?
Those are not for social distancing, no. There's one for social distancing. That was the one I referred to, Ebbets Field. those you are seeing 311 phone calls that they looked at that came over as social distancing, but were actually labeled, we look at the calls, they were disorderly groups. So those are all marijuana, drinking, urinating summonses. None of those 13 you're showing, besides the one I mentioned, are for social distancing. The difference is when people call 311, they labeled them as social distancing calls because they were saying large groups gathering. But none of those summonses were for social distancing.
All right, can you give us a update on crime in the neighborhood and some of the demonstrations and?
Right. So crime continues to plummet in the neighborhood. We're way down in every single category. Unfortunately, we've taken a homicide or two. But with that said, right now, burglaries and grand larcenies and robberies are the lowest in the history since CompStat started the era. We are lower than at any time in CompStat recorded history with those crimes. Every other category is down. Crime is not the major categories we follow is not really an issue. We're really continuing a downward trend on all those crime issues. What we are seeing, however, and it goes back to what you're saying, a lot of these social distancing calls, 311, a lot of people are calling us, for Beekman Place, for Sterling Street, 320 Sterling, for Winthrop, for Hawthorne, for Fenimore Street, for large people gathering. And we're getting there, we're finding 10, 20, 30 people drinking, smoking, and just, playing loud stereo music. And it's becoming harder and harder to disperse these crowds with everything going on. Certain parts of society is taking what's going on with the protest as a right to be out there. So it's becoming a real issue with us to get these crowds to disperse. However, with that said, before the protest started, me and the CEO and Mike, we spoke about other issues, thinking outside the box. Besides police enforcement, who else could help us? So we called the mayor's office up, and in conjunction with the mayor's office, they agreed to send out some violence interrupters to these locations they have problems with, and have them go out there and speak to these kids and tell them, listen, we understand you have no place to go. We're not saying don't hang out on the street, but you can't be playing loud music. You can't be drinking. You can't be throwing dice. You can't be blocking the sidewalk. You can't be cat whistling to girls. All these things are what people call 311 for. So we're using the mayor's office right now, and we have a virtual meeting scheduled next week with them also to try to get them out to these locations where we're seeing these problems, trying to do something other than enforcement. Because obviously we've been there 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. The enforcement's not really helping. So we're trying to think outside the box, what to do with that. As far as the protest, we haven't really seen any protests in the 7-1. However, there are in the 6-7 and the 7-7, and they are using the 7-1 they're walking through to go through these commands. Why the 6-7 and the 7-7? I have no idea. But they're walking through our precinct to get to these commands. So we are monitoring them. We are following them. Unfortunately, the other day we had a little flare-up. There was an agreement at Grand Island Plaza. We dispersed 1,000 of them at 11:30 at night. They asked us if they could continue protesting, if they stay in the sidewalks, if that would be all right with us. We made an agreement with them. They can stay in the sidewalks after curfew. To just stay in the sidewalk and peacefully, and we follow them. However, one splinter group broke off on Nostrand and decided they were going to take the street. Nostrand Union, after several warnings, get back on the sidewalk and move back to the sidewalk. The street was open. There was cars passing. We had bikes and people walking the street. They were warned, at least by me personally, 4, 5, 6 times to get back on the sidewalk. We played the message that they passed the curfew. We told them they were past their curfew. We told them that was not the agreement to be back on the street. We warned them several times that was not the agreement. They're breaking curfew and that they would be arrested, and they refused to comply. So unfortunately, we had several protesters arrested at that location on Montgomery and Nostrand. But besides that one event, we've had no other issues with protesters in Crown Heights, none. The protesters we've had that came through the 6-7 or the 7-7, all peaceful, all moving, no issues at all with any of them, besides that one incident I spoke to.
Thank you. I just want to clarify if anyone, there have been protests in the 7-1, but there were no incidents at these protests, correct?
Correct.
Were peaceful protests. Yanela Perry, you're unmuted. You have to unmute yourself.
absolutely peaceful.
I'm trying to, you have yourself muted, so I cannot unmute you. Now you're unmuted. Hold on, let me try again. Unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Vinny.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. We do have some quality of life issues in our neighborhood. I know we spoke, and Detective Parkinson has been, a little more on top of it as it's trying to curb what's going on. But we still, I understand you guys can't be here 24/7. So we still have some issues as it relates to as it gets later in the night. And one of our issues also is the fact that the street lights are so dim that growing in, it's really dark. And it's as you say, young guys just hanging out, drinking, smoking. And also now they've started off with the firecrackers.
Yeah, okay, so fireworks are becoming an issue. We had a problem yesterday on Hawthorne Street. We tried to disperse the crowd, and unfortunately, there were fireworks shot at the police, and we had to make 2 arrests at that location. So the fireworks we have some information on who's selling the fireworks. So hopefully we'll have him under arrest pretty soon, the guy selling them. As far as the lights, I'm pretty sure I'll speak to Yakov. We could have DOT, Department of Traffic, come out, take a look at the lights and make them brighter for you. And I will personally speak to Parkinson. And by all means, if Parkinson's a good cop, but if you feel that more can be done, please reach out to me, send me an email or call me. I'll be on top of it. That's never a problem.
I will, but even last night I called and he was on the block. So things are. So I just wanted you to know, but we're still, I know he can't be here all night. So once he leaves, it's mayhem again. And the worst, Friday and Sunday.
You know what? You have my email? Do you have my email?
I don't know. Hold on. You're unmuted. I think you muted yourself. Try to unmute yourself. Probably muting at the same. Vinny, I will. Do you have Vinny's email? The question.
Do you have my email?
No, I'll call you and get it, Vinny.
Okay, and then you send me an email, and I'll make sure I'll make sure that I write down on the roll calls. I'll speak to the CO to send patrol cars through there every hour to make sure nobody's hanging out. We'll try with some omnipresence.
Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Another committee member asked, I know you mentioned this before, but if you could briefly summarize what the 13 summons were for and the 1 arrest.
Right, so the 13, so the problem we're having that you're seeing in this report is they looked at all these social distancing calls and they looked at how many summons were written. So when you call 311, say 320 Sterling, you saw the group hanging out drinking, 311 then goes labels that as a social call. Then they look at how we responded, and they see we marked the job, which we call 96, which means summons served. So then when I go in to see what the summons were served for, the summonses issued are not for social distancing. They're for drinking, disorderly conduct, throwing dice, marijuana possession. But when an outside agency looks at that, they don't see what the summons are written for because they can't see the summonses. But we can. So 311's labeling these calls, they're coming in for drinking, gambling, large disorderly groups as social distancing calls, and we're getting there. We're doing quiet life, enforcement. We're not doing social distancing enforcement, but they can't see that on their end. They only see the 311 phone call, and they only see the summons served. So they're assuming that was for social distancing, and it absolutely is not for social distancing. It's for required life infractions.
And the 1 arrest you said was Ebbetsfield. Is that what you said?
That's Ebbetsfield. So that led from a shots fired job that we were up there with a large dispute with a disorderly group. And when we got there, there was some going back and forth. They refused to get off they refused to vacate the area, even though we were trying to set up a crime scene for the shots fired, and led to the arrest and a summons for social distancing. But the person was not just issued a social distance summons. He was issued multiple summonses. That was only one of the other ones issued to him. And to date, that's the only one that's ever been written in 7-1 for social distancing.
I see Fred has a question. Fred, you're going to be the last question because we have Councilmember Deitch here and he's been waiting for some time. Fred, you have to unmute yourself.
Absolutely. And this is just a very quick comment. So I think Yunel had mentioned regarding the lighting over by her section, in her neighborhood. And I think Vinny had mentioned about bringing DOT into the conversation. Lighting in general is a conversation that we've been having with regards, with DOT in the district. So there have been some conversations with, that are ongoing with regards to that. And there'll probably be some updates with that, but it's not something that's not already in play. And Mia, if you have, if I missed anything or if there are any updates that you want to add, I mean, please feel free to put in the chat, or if you want to speak just very briefly.
Vin, I know there were some issues with lighting on some other blocks. There were requests. Are you aware of that with the DOT? I think there was a request for Kingston Avenue, and there were maybe.
You're talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking. Are you familiar with that? The light, there used to be.
Yeah, there is lighting requests all over. We really sent a request through Community Board 9. DOT is it's a big. Listen, I'm not gonna lie. It's a project. They got to get lights out there. It's going to take some time. It's a slow process, but it'll eventually get done.
Vinny, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, Yaakov, let me just say something to everybody. 2020 has been a trying year for everybody. Just please, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll get through all this. Everybody, please be safe.
Thank you, Vinny, for joining us, and thank you for all the work you do in Crown Heights and Brooklyn. We really respect what you do, and you're always here at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. We can always call on you and count on you, and we appreciate your service. Thank you so much, Vinny.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. So we have here Councilmember Deitch. Councilmember Chaim Deitch has been on the forefront of the efforts to reopen New York safely. He's been meeting with local businesses, and I know he's been in touch with the mayor, and he's been quoted in the New York Post and other news outlets. And we'd like to hear from Councilmember Deitch about the efforts to open New York and how you think we should move going forward now with COVID and all.
Thank you, Yaakov. Thank you all so much. And I want to give a shout out to Jeffrey Davis and Vinny. Thank you for everything that you do. I just want to acknowledge I have 2 staff members on the Zoom, Tova Rosenfeld and Jabran Akram. Please give a wave. My staff members are a very diverse staff, and my district is a extremely diverse district. I represent basically all corners, people, the make of New York City, and I'm very proud of my staff, and they work extremely, extremely hard each and every day. We have been in quarantine now for probably almost 4 months, and it's very difficult for everyone. We're going through difficult times. People are struggling. They can't make ends meet. Unemployment, just here in the United States of America, we have over 36 million people that applied for unemployment, and almost 1.5 million New York State residents who are unemployment. And, here in New York City, I took the lead to be the go guy and the person to be accessible to help people and streamline the process of unemployment. When unemployment first, when the pandemic hit and people needed to apply for unemployment, they couldn't even apply. There was no way for them to apply. There were so many people applying that the system crashed. So I had the opportunity to speak to the Governor Cuomo's office, and they partnered with Google, and then we finally streamlined that process. But then probably about 75 of the people who applied for unemployment needed to finalize the process by receiving a call back from the Department of Labor. And that took for many people weeks. While they had no jobs, they couldn't provide for their families. So I took the lead in New York City. I had the guts by sending out my email address, where I received calls from all 5 boroughs and beyond, people from Long Island, from other areas in New York, and working with the governor and being accessible and have amazing staff, we're able to streamline the process to get people the unemployment.
We don't hear you, Chaim. We lost you.
So they're able to provide for the family. In New York City, over 50% of small businesses in New York are immigrant-owned businesses, women, minority-owned businesses, and veteran-owned businesses. And that means a lot to me, the veterans as well, because I'm the chair of the Veterans Committee in the New York City Council. We have 210,000 veterans who live here in New York City. And it's extremely critical for that, that our government allows for these stores to open safely. And if we had the strong leadership, then we can do it safely.
Can you talk about that? How do you see stores opening safely?
So, if we have the proper guidance, anytime there was messaging that we received from the governor, anytime we saw messaging from the mayor's office, they gave, like, you had to read between the lines. There wasn't proper guidance. And if we have the oversight and the guidance to small business owners, then we can do it. We see these box stores, the corporate, where the big money is, they're open. They have hundreds of people in the stores walking in and out. And small businesses have an invested interest in their business. So they want to open safely, and they know how to do it. So we need to give them an opportunity. And it's critical that our government allows for these small business owners to open. And many of the business owners, I have to tell you, haven't even received government loans or haven't even applied for unemployment. They didn't know how to apply. And this is a lack of guidance and a lack of interest and outreach from our elected officials. And I met and spoke with many of the business owners where one stuck out. It was a Haitian-owned business owner who I visited, and that was the story that was featured in the New York Post article several weeks ago. And I was shocked that those business owners who I met with did not apply for unemployment, and they didn't apply for the PPP. At that time, it was already too late because the city ran out of money. So working through my office, I was able to streamline the process for them and help them to apply for unemployment. These business owners are not interested. Trust me, they're not interested for government handouts. They would love to open the business. These are hardworking people. They want to open the business and provide for the families and also provide those jobs. Those jobs are extremely crucial. And these are some of the things that I've been vocal about. And we need to keep on holding our government accountable and making sure that they look out for the best interest that matters most to us.
Thank you. We have a question from the board chair, Fred Baptiste. You have to mute yourself, Fred. I'm trying to unmute you. Yes.
I'm unmuted. I didn't have a question. My hand was just still up from a previous question. My apologies.
All right. I see we have here a Joel. Joel, you have to unmute yourself as well. Joel.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I was just wondering, I know we're talking about small businesses now, but at the same time, our playgrounds have also been shut for the past 2.5, 3 months already. Is there any way we can discuss those?
Yeah. So this is a conversation that I had just most recently today. There was actually an error in the Parks Department website. It did not say that playgrounds were closed. It said tennis wasn't permitted, basketball wasn't permitted. So I had a conversation with the Parks Commissioner because I put out a message because I read the website, what it stated there, and I gave that message out. It's extremely important in many communities. We don't have outdoor space. People have large families, and even if they don't have large families, they need a place to just, for the kids, the children, the pets even, to go out and enjoy the outdoor weather. It only makes sense that playgrounds should be open. We have clergy members, we have auxiliary volunteers who live in the community who want to go out there and help out. If the city puts together these volunteers and with proper guidance, and of course, we need to do everything safely, we should open our playgrounds immediately. It should have been opened weeks ago. And coming from me, I have been in touch with 2 infectious disease doctors throughout this pandemic, and I have been quarantined. I sent my staff home, one of the first ones in the city of New York who sent their staff members to work from home. And I take this very seriously. I had a letter that went out to New York City residents by reverends, by pastors, by rabbis, by clergy members, urging people to practice social distancing and distribute masks and make sure that they do everything safely, because we have gone through a horrendous few months during the peak of the pandemic, and where we have seen many people in our communities who have been affected by COVID, who lost their loved ones and who couldn't even go to the hospital to visit one of their loved ones, their family members during the last moments while they were here with us. And there's a lot of things that we could always look back and how we can make different and how we could change things. And we need to be proactive rather than reactive, and not to complain later of how we should have done things better. So we need to raise our voices when we see government is not there for us, such as today when you're speaking about the playgrounds. We need to open the playgrounds, and we do it in a safe manner. And yes, the city of New York can do it.
Thank you, Chaim. Rashid, I just want to say I cannot read the chat. If you want to speak, you have to raise your hand on the. I can't read every chat here. I'm right now. Rashida, you're unmuted.
Okay, I have 3 questions. One first, you mentioned that business owners. Which business owners in our community board district have you spoken to specifically in regard to their process with getting the help for their small businesses? Second question, and third, well, both 2 and 3 is, have you reached out to the Parks and Recreation Committee for the community board, and also the health committee for the community board? Because you were mentioning certain things that they would probably be also, covered in the past. And then also, I know we have some community members that aren't being able to speak and find the video that you did release. We have a large Black and brown community, and want you to address that video that you released.
Thank you, Rashida. Chaim.
Thank you so much. That's 3. You said 4 questions or 3 questions? 3? Okay. So firstly, I just want to say the business owners, I don't have that information on me right now. There were many business owners throughout the city, including Crown Heights area, including in Community Board 9. So this is not CompStat, so I could tell you that if it's in a hearing, I'll get you the list. So you have to trust my word on that. And secondly, I have not spoken to the Parks Committee in my local community board, but I have been in contact with the mayor's office as well as the Parks Commissioner himself. And I just spoke to him a few days ago. You could call him, his name is Marty Marr. And I spoke to him about having our local parks reopened. I've also been in touch with people in Community Board 3, where they have been very vocal, where the children went into parks and they were thrown out by Parks Department and the Police Department. And people have they have no outdoor space. Anywhere you go in the city, very few areas have outdoor space. And it's crucial that, I have 5 children of my own, okay? My youngest is 14, and my oldest is almost as old as I am. And I have 2 grandchildren, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I also have a granddog. And I know the importance of having children to play outside. And I see it firsthand. And parents are, I wouldn't say stuck at home because we love our homes, but they're cramped at home at times. And this is 4 months already. It's time to reopen our parks. And finally, on your third question, so I have been very vocal about justice for George Floyd. I put out a statement as chair of the New York City Council's Jewish caucus. I put out a very strong statement about George Floyd, and we need justice for George Floyd. As a matter of fact, tonight on my radio show, I have a radio show every Thursday night, and tonight I'm going to be having Reverend Kevin McCall, and we're going to be speaking about the movement and how to achieve justice, and a discussion how to fight systematic racism in our country. And everyone deserves to be treated equally. Black lives matter. But the video you have seen, those who were not part of the George Floyd message, we took away the messaging, where people have been looting in stores. And I can't tell you. First of all, when I saw the video in Minnesota, Minneapolis, when I first saw the video, I didn't have to look at it more than once. What happened there was outrageous. I don't think any human being in their right mind would not condemn those actions of those officers. That was.
We're losing you.
Fine. The book should be thrown at them. That was totally something that should never, ever happen in our country. It should never, ever happen in our city. And again, Black Lives Matter. And I have been very vocal when it came to the Black community. When Anne Marie Washington got stabbed because she was Black, I was the only elected official that went to the hospital to visit her. And I wasn't running for anything. I went to visit her because she is a human being. She was in my office. We gave her all the services that she needed. She had personal things that we took care of for her. She moved out of state. I don't even know where she lives now, but that is important to me. When the African burial in Manhattan was tagged with racial words, I was up and front and center to speak out. And I was there with Jamani Williams and all the members from the BLAC and the New York City Council. And we are all equal. Okay, we are all equal. So when you read something in a post, when I saw that article this morning in the Kings County Politics, I was extremely upset. That is not me. People should not believe what they read. My cell phone number is 917-560-0353. Anyone could call me at any time. I have my phone with me 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, except for the Sabbath. I only pick up in case of emergency. You could speak to me personally, and I will address any issues that you have. Don't believe everything you read in the paper without knowing the person firsthand. So I appreciate that question. And I just want to end off by saying Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaim. We have one more question from Warren Burke, who's on the executive committee. Warren?
Hi, Councilman. Am I unmuted? Yes.
Yes, you are.
Hi. Two questions. Number one, in terms of our local businesses, I've had a lot of experience with filling out the paycheck protection for local businesses on a pro bono basis, and a lot of them were shut out. My question is that if, you know, I know the city council has $100 million program for that, but we really need to drill down and give our merchants help. And those are the merchants on Nordstrom, Kingston, and Utica. So is there discussions about that? Because we are suffering from a lot of closed gates. And that's something that I know that our Economic Development Committee is concerned with.
Okay, I'm going to answer this question first. Firstly, we just sent a letter to the mayor's office requesting for $500 million for PPP. When the city came out first with the PPP, the funding ran out. It ran out quickly. And a lot of the money went to the box stores. It didn't go to the mom and pop stores. And that is totally disgusting. And that is a lack of leadership. Our business owners, okay, are the backbone of our city. They're the backbone of our economy. People deserve to have jobs. People deserve.
Right, but how are you, I'm sorry, let me just interrupt for a second. How are you going to get that money to our local merchants, okay, whose gates are closed?
Yes, it would go through the Small Business Services. That's a New York City agency. And then they would have to reopen. If the mayor decides to give the money, the $500 million, then they would have to reopen the process where small business owners would have to apply for it. And another issue with an issue with the PPP, that you have to spend a certain amount of money. A lot of people are not able to pay the rents. And right now we have a moratorium, for example.
No, that I agree with, and that we all know. Okay, my second question is that in terms of our local hospitals, I'm a volunteer for Kings County Hospital, and you know, the hospitals have been under enormous stress, both financially as well as with the residents who've been under tremendous stress, as well as the personnel. So I was at a meeting today where the deficits of the H&H hospitals are running very high due to COVID-19. And my question is, and I'm particularly concerned with Kings County, but I am on a council for all the health and hospital organizations. What would the city council be doing for that, to close that gap, to continue the health care that our residents are having?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. And I represent Coney Island Hospital, which is part of the HHH system. And now in budget talks, I'm in the budget negotiation team at the New York City Council. And I have just funded for this fiscal year Coney Island Hospital, which is H&H. I fully funded their entire request. They asked for me. I think it was about a little over $1 million. I don't have it offhand, but everything that they asked and requested from me regarding funding, I called up the president of Coney Island Hospital, and I told her several weeks ago that I fully funded them. And you're right, we need to make sure that all hospitals are fully funded, and people who walk in the hospitals who don't have insurance, we need to make sure that those people are held accountable, that are helped. No one should be sick because they don't have money in their bank account. Everyone needs to be taken care of. And I'm in constant touch with my colleagues, Kalina Rivera in the city council, and she's leading the HHH hospitals. That's her committee. And I'm going to be working with her during the budget process to make sure that the request that you just made, and something that's important to all of us, that we do everything possible to help these hospitals survive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Deitch. I don't see any other raised hands. Rashida, do you have another question?
Yeah, yes, I do.
All right.
Just a follow-up, Councilman. Are you going to have any debates with the other people you're running against?
We're not, Rashida, there's no questions regarding campaigns or elections at the community board meetings. Please, council member, we're not allowed to engage in any campaigning or anything of that sort. Thank you very much, Rashida. No questions. All right, I see there's no more raised hands. I'm going to bring on Jeffrey Davis. Jeffrey, you have to unmute yourself. Council member, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Have me. I want to thank everyone. Everyone stay safe, be safe. And if anyone has any issues that they want to reach out to my office, my email address is cdeutsch, DEUTSCH @council.nyc.gov. Or you can reach me. I gave her my cell number. And if anyone still has any questions, feel free to text me and you will get a response. Thank you all so much and have a blessed evening. And if anyone's interested, I have my weekly radio show at www.radio620am, and you could hear our conversation tonight with Reverend Kevin McCall. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Councilman. Bye. Jeffrey Davis.
Hey, thank you for having me.
District leader. I just want to say that we all are outraged and disgusted by what happened to George Floyd. Horrible. The officers that murdered him should be held accountable. I hope they're prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and obviously that bad cops have to go, dirty cops have to be held accountable. But we also recognize there are many good officers in the police department. We had Vinny on tonight, who's been incredible in this community, and there are others that have been really, really dedicated and heroic. And we just because some cops are dirty doesn't mean all cops are dirty. And I want Jeffrey, if you could begin by talking about how we as a community can move together in unity, and we could unite against injustice and against discrimination. And as one community, because we're really one community, we're all New Yorkers, we may be from different ethnic groups, but we're really all one community, and all lives matter. Black lives matter, absolutely. Black lives matter. Black people deserve to feel safe. Be safe. We all deserve to feel safe and be safe. We are all one community. Jeffrey.
Oh, no doubt about it. First of all, good job, Chair Berman, a councilman, if he's still on the line, and all involved. I served the 43rd for 6 years as a district leader on a volunteer basis. And thank you. It was a great, tremendous experience. I met some wonderful people. We need to continue to build a community, Black people, Jewish people, all ethnicities, Caribbeans, people from across the board need to continue to work, not wait till something happens, but continue to interact. We've been interacting with one another since the uprising back in '91. Myself and others, Yakov, visiting homes, sitting on the stoops at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and just being neighbors, just being friendly, partaking. Just last week, there was a rally, a protest with young Jewish kids, young Jewish people, millennials, saying Black Lives Matter. And it was amazing. It was about 200 or 300 people. They had their signs up. So passing the torch as someone that's older now, giving our young people a voice from across the board. What happened to George Floyd is, yes, devastating. We've experienced it time and time again throughout my life. I've seen it over and over again, and we've been speaking on it. So we welcome other ethnicities across the board, understanding this and seeing this. But we need results afterwards, as to say Black Lives Matter, of course. Black Lives Matter, of course. But we need solutions afterwards on where do we go from when the marches and all of that is over. We need concrete solutions, concrete results. And that's what I like to see, concrete solutions and results. In New York City, 50,000, for example, police officers, and let's say if 10,000 are rogue, 10,000 are bad cops, that means that there's 40,000 people, police officers, that do a wonderful job and do their job. But at the same time, those 10,000 can create havoc to a community. And we have to weed them out. We literally have to open those books up, their folders up, and see that for those who are qualified. Some jobs are just not for everybody. This police department is a very serious job. You have a weapon. It's a very serious job with lives is in your hand, and you can't mess up over and over and over again. So we've got to weed that out. For those who have disciplinary action, we have to open the books back up on their career, on their life, and say, if need be, they got to be removed from the job. It reminds me of a pilot, an airplane pilot. 40,000 airplane pilots, and if the 10,000 are bad, then people die. So this job is not for everybody. We've got to open their folder back up and get them literally out of there, because maybe the job is not for them. And we must understand that there are racist people that exist, and we've got to weed them out and get them out of there. They got to be retrained. They got to be reevaluated psychologically and see if they're fit for the job. And if they're not fit, they got to be fired immediately before someone else gets hurt.
I just want to clarify, because I'm looking now at the chats. When I say raise hand, I'm not talking about on the screen. You have an option on Zoom to raise your hand. You see, like Warren Burke raised his hand, Rashida, see the little blue hand next to their name. I can't look at 50 screens and see who's raising their hand. Does anybody have any questions for Jeffrey Davis, please raise your hand in the chat. Any questions for Jeffrey Davis, or any comments about how we as a community could move together against injustice and against racism together as one community? Feel free to enter the okay, here. Liz, you have to unmute yourself. You're unmuted.
Yeah, I just want to say, it looks like Alicia Boyd has something to say. She might not know how to raise.
She may have something to say, but her hand is not raised. Now,
well, I think she's trying to. If you would pay attention to the chat, I know you're.
Although I have 37 screens in front of me.
I hear you. It would just be great if somebody from the committee could express what's happening in the chat and maybe let her speak.
How can I? Okay, thank you very much, Liz. It's very hard to monitor 37 screens, read a chat, and interact at the same time. I see Julia has a raised hand. Julia, you have to unmute yourself also. Julia. Yes. Go ahead. You can talk. You're unmuted. Julia. Hello?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, so my suggestion is to help the police system is for us to defund the police. The money that we're spending on police, we should be spending on nurses, we should be spending on schools, we should be spending on children's programs. When a cop comes to your door and it's a mental illness problem, then somebody gets killed. Why don't we send social workers? Other cities have done this. Camden defunded their police and people did not kill. During the protest and this recent uprising, there were no arrests in Camden. We could be the same. We could do better. Thank you.
Jeffrey, would you like to respond?
Well, we definitely have to have mental health officers arrive at a scene when there's a mental health problem. There's no doubt about that. We've been advocating for that for a number of years now, to have social workers or mental health officers that have training to people's homes to avoid, someone getting killed, bottom line. So yes, but the fund to take money away from the police department, I don't think money should be taken away from the police department. I think money should be put into other areas for mental health issues and housing, but not taking money away from the police department. We need to use that money to weed out the monies that's there, to weed out those racist cops, the cops that are not fit for the job, and use that to fire them. But I don't think that we should take money away from the police department.
Thank you. I'm gonna call on Christine Jackson Bernard next. Then I'm gonna call on Alicia Boyd. Then I'm gonna call on Rashida, if you're still here, if you still want to speak. You have to unmute yourself as well.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. I just want to say two things that I think just to make sure everybody knows how to use the functionality of Zoom would be really helpful. Everybody doesn't use Zoom every day. So when you are on your screen and you go all the way to the right, there's a more button that pops up with three horizontal dots. If you hit that, then you'll see the option to raise your hand. I just want to make sure people knew that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then secondly, I just want to respond to what someone else just said. We can't make money from nowhere, right? We don't have the power to print money, but what we can do is just reallocate funds. So if, the majority of calls that are made to the police department are not for violent crimes, it's usually for mental health. So instead of spending, I don't know, for easy numbers, $1 million, like spending that money, just take that money from the police department and give it to more social counselors. I know the answer is not that quick and easy, but that's what we mean when we see defund the police. It's not take money necessarily. Well, it is to take money, but it's to reallocate the funds to the calls that police just aren't answering. Police don't do all of the. Anyway, that's it. I'm rambling.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. I just want we shouldn't forget. Well, first of all, is that is that coming from your car, Jeffries?
Who am I?
I think there's some background noise.
Okay, how's that better?
The UN is in New York. We have conferences in New York every week, every weekend. There's a counter-terrorism unit. There are other units here. Where is money coming from? Where is it going? We have to be very careful when we talk about defunding the police department. We need a safe city as well. Jeffries, would you like to address that?
We need a safe city. We need our police officers. We need the good cops to do their job. It'll be absolutely anarchy. We need officers to take care of business. The shootings are up in certain areas. And we need officers. We need trained officers that understand the community from the community. I heard her point when she said defund, meaning don't necessarily take it out the police department, if I'm understanding right, but put it into a mental health area within the police department. Yes. Put some more money into the police department, particularly for mental health. Yes, I support that 100%, because a lot of times it's a lot of violence falls under the mental health issues. So to put money into that, but don't take money out of law enforcement, but just to keep money in law enforcement, but put it in the mental health component within the police department. Yeah, I support that.
Alicia, it's all yours.
First, I just want to say how I am absolutely appalled at the way that this meeting has transpired. I'm appalled at the fact that we have had an outside council person who does not even reside in our district, who does not provide any services, never even attended a community board meeting, has done nothing for our community, but now has a political platform in which he just sat there and displayed his political platform to the entire community. I think that that's appalling. Second, his ad was absolutely racist. It described us as looters. It described the movement as just wanting to burn and loot. And then he went on to a very anti-Black visual of seeing a Jewish man being attacked by a Black man.
So we do have a policy that you can't defame people during community board meetings. You can't.
I'm not defaming anything. I'm just saying, I'm not saying
community board.
I am not defaming anything. I am talking about an ad that I saw. I'm describing that ad. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the ad.
You called him racist. You didn't call the ad.
The ad was outrageous. The ad was offensive to Black people. It was offensive to white people. It was offensive to Jewish people. It was so anti-Black. It could not. He never once in that ad talked about why the looting was occurring, why the violence was occurring.
Why the looting was occurring, Alicia?
That's right. There is a position that people have about why. And are you gonna let me speak? Or are you gonna speak over me? Are you gonna let me speak?
I'm gonna mute you. There's never an excuse to loot. This is rhetoric that encourages violence. Yes, we have to demonstrate. Yes, we have to protest against injustice. We do not loot. Looting, there's no excuse for looting. I saw your emails. There's no excuse for riots. We don't riot, we don't loot, we don't break the law. We don't. We want to protest, I join you in protest. We do not loot. And coming from somebody who sent out an email with a blue star when discussing developers, I have a hard time hearing them lecture me on what's against injustice. Any other questions? Rashida, I see you have a question. Rashida.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going back to what Mr. Jeffries had mentioned about the budget for the police department. I believe the police department budget is roughly about 5 billion, not roughly the amount, but I know there's about reallocation. I think we should be in a place where we're trying to be preventative versus reactive. And I think what the defunding campaign is more about being preventative. We want to make sure that allocations are made to summer youth employment programs, to social services, to the youth, so we don't have to get to the point where someone has to feel that they have to steal in order to survive, that they have to do things that necessarily may not seem the best, but because of their situation, they have to do that. So we have to come from a point of, we need to be preventative, and the police is more about being reactive. They come after the situation has occurred, and what we're campaigning, well, we're not campaigning, but what we're urging is to be preventative and allocate to programs that prevent things from happening.
Thank you, Rashida. Very good question.
Very good point. Very good point.
You want to respond, Jeffrey? Or?
No, very good point. A preventive measure, recreation centers, more police and community engaging to each other, youth programs within the police department. Yes, whatever you can do, preventive measures before it gets that. But the reality is that the gangs, the Bloods and the Crips exist right now, and they are people that are criminals. It's as simple as that. There's people that's criminals, and that's very violent and very dangerous. And our children, our mothers, all of us, the community should be able to walk down the street without being fearful of their life. So that's my concern, to live in safety, to live a comfortable life without being violated, disrespected, and or killed. And that is a reality that exists, and we're doing all we can. I've been addressing violence for over 25 years, 25, 30 years. Marches and memorials and all art exhibits, feeding the community.
This guy is the district leader.
No, former district leader. I'm a former. Now I'm
former
running
district leader. I got it.
Former. The new district leader is Adu. His name is Adu. He's a wonderful person. Support him. Adu Himmelin.
Primo, you have a question or comments?
Oh, no, I was, well, yeah, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I want to just second what Rashida was saying about the preventative measures. The police are a reaction to crime rather than a way to stop crime. I'm also agreeing here with some of the things that Alicia has said. I found that ad to be incredibly anti-Black and to be racist. It was offensive to me. I know many other people that it was offensive to, and I'm kind of shocked here in my first community board meeting to see someone come in to clearly kind of stand on a political platform and then to have many voices here silenced. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to speak, but I hope that there can be greater representation in future community board meetings. And I'm kind of stunned at what has taken place here so far, and honestly a little bit hurt as well by the platform given to someone who has done something that is so offensive to the Black community.
I did not see the ad you're referring to. I will say that anybody who raised their hand on the right side of the screen, I called on them, and we've had many elected officials over the years speak at community board meetings, at committee meetings. And when somebody tried to speak about the campaign, I shut it down right away. This is not unusual. It's done at every community board over the city. And I will never give a platform for an election or for somebody to promote an election. That is not what was done here tonight, but thank you for your comments. Are there any other questions before we close the evening? I just want to end off again. I thank you all for joining us here tonight. I think that we're all outraged by what happened to George Floyd. I hope those officers go away for a long time, forever. And I think as a community, it's important we stand together against racism, against anti-Semitism, against injustice, because we're all facing the same threat, and only together as one community will we succeed and can this country survive. And I look forward to working with all of us for the betterment of Crown Heights, for the betterment of New York. And thank you all for joining. And I believe this is the last meeting of the year. And I hope you all have a healthy summer, a safe summer. And I'm going to give Fred an opportunity to say goodbye as well before we end the evening. Fred, you have to unmute yourself. You're good, Fred? I don't.
No. Yeah, no, actually, I think we'll let it on that note. Thank you again for carrying it, and thank you all to all the committee members for your service for the year. And these are not dialogues that end after this meeting. These will be issues, and these are things that we're going to be discussing continually. Looking forward to continuing.
Fred, we're losing you.
Yeah, it's bad. Can you hear me still?
Now we hear you.
Yeah, no, just saying that thank you to everyone for all the work you've done, and understanding though,
we don't hear you.
This is probably a rougher meeting. These are, it's not always easy conversations, but we're committed to a conversation. And, and these are topics and dialogues that we're going to continue to have as a community and as a community. And I want to again thank you, Yakov, as the chair, and to all the committee members as well, and to all those members of the community who have come and participated tonight, and in all the meetings throughout the year.
Thank you so much, Fred, for your leadership. Thank you all to my fellow community members. Like I said, let us stay safe, be safe. If you need to reach me, please reach out to Mia or Khalid at the board. They will forward any emails. I'm happy to help if I can assist with anything. And again, thank you all for joining, and have a good evening.